Mr. Safiullah presenting bouquet to Mr. Ram. Madam Indra Chandrasekhan to be presented the bouquet by Mr. Safiullah and the Mayor Muhammad Safiullah. Thank you very much, Mr. Safiullah, and thank you very much all of you. Now, may I request read the book, The Destruction of Hyderabad.
And author of numerous books. His books include The Lives of Kashmir Dispute, 1947-2012, which I need not tell you has become a runaway success and a bestseller, and has been so for a long time.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is Supreme Court and a constitutional expert, a columnist of the front line of numerous books. His books include The Lives of Kashmir Dispute, 1947-2012, which I need, Islam, South Asia and the Cold War, Article 370, A Constitutional History of Jammu and Kashmir, 1947, History and Diplomacy, Indian Political Trials, 1775-1947, and Jihad, Prejudice versus Reality, the Babri Masjid Question, 1528, which we are all looking forward to. So this in brief, ladies and gentlemen, was the introduction of Mr. A.G. Noorani. We shall be hearing from him also. But before that, may I now request our chief guest, Mr. Ramoji Rao, to kindly. Yes, sir, please. My pleasure.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am extremely happy to have this privilege to release Mr. Noorani's book, The Destruction of Hyderabad. At 83, Mr. Noorani remains a towering personality among India's legal fraternity. He has extraordinary abilities to research and document. He is one of the most objective authors and analysts of our time. He is trusted as he puts facts above everything else. Apart from being a great lawyer and a constitutional expert, he is also a great human being. Mr. Noorani's interests are wide-ranging. His scholarly works are most authentic and thought-provoking. As a prolific writer, he wrote many books on a wide variety of subjects. Mr. Noorani is known for his candidness in expressing his views. I believe this courage comes from his unwavering conviction and intellectual honesty. I am sure the present book also will carry this candor. On this delightful occasion, I wish Mr. Noorani great health, happiness and long life. Thank you.
This was Mr. Ramoji Rao, the esteemed Mr. Ramoji Rao, Chairman Ramoji Group, speaking as the chief guest here, ladies and gentlemen. And now may I have the privilege of inviting Mr. A.G. Noorani to speak about his books and other things that he wishes to speak about. You can speak from there, sir, if the mic is working. Yes, please. You can be seated and speak if you so wish, sir.
Ramoji Rao and ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, may I speak to you sitting down, because the style becomes different. I'll be speaking to you as one friend to the others. So thank you very much. First and foremost, let me thank my friend of 30 years, Mr. Ramoji Rao, for gracing this occasion. It is very difficult to make him spare time from his busy schedule, but he has never declined my request. And I'm grateful to you, Mr. Ramoji Rao. We met first in August '83 in Bangalore, seminar hosted by Ramkrishna Hegde, Chief Minister, on Center-State Relations. Met again in Hyderabad in February '84, and then began an association and a friendship, unbroken friendship, which lasts to this day. Thank you very much indeed. I have many other thanks to offer. First and foremost, my esteemed friend, Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi, Member of Parliament, who likes, for reasons I am unable to comprehend but which I fully respect, his refusal to come to the dais. I must tell you that my initial encouragement, when I thought of this book, how did I think of this book? I'll explain to you. But when I did think of writing this book, I asked him, I said, this book will make me very unpopular, because as my preliminary view is that there are no heroes. And I don't want to hurt people's feelings. He said, you need not worry. The young in Hyderabad want to know the truth. I believe that the second name of Allah is Annal Haq. And I believe that the truth is supreme. I have promised to speak for a particular length of time, and I'm going to keep that promise on the watch. So I decided to write. In February 2011, I came here, Hyderabad Club. My good friend Mr. Ramoji Rao was gracious to spare time and come over. And Asaduddin Owaisi Sahab provided me umpteen facilities. I'm sorry to see that the director of the archives is not here. Thank you, I'm much obliged to you for coming. She was a pillar of strength. one look at that material and I realized what a treasure trove it was. I took the xeroxes of all of them, took them to Bombay, read them, and there the scales, what the few that they were, fell from my eyes. Because as E.H. Carr writes in his classic, What is History? When a man composes a document, he has a certain perspective of view. They were some of the most brilliant minds at work. Ali Yawar Jung was on businessman side, but he's a fraud character. There was the letters of Sir and legal opinions of Sir Walter Monckton, which are set out in the book. There were the writings of Sir Mirza Ismail, who sometimes arouses amusement, sometimes admiration, and there were the letters by his late, His Exalted Highness, the Nizam of Hyderabad. Now, before I proceed it further, let me explain to you will you please go away? Let me explain to you my perspective. When I was at school, I read Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's Pakistan and Partition of India. It left a deep impact on my mind. Here this was this man, and on every page there was a long quotation. So when people accuse me of putting long quotations, I say, look, it's too late for me in the day to change my habits. But there's another reason. Everybody can't go and knock the doors of Dr. Zarina Parveen. And she won't have the time for them either. She was good enough to spare time for me. So let me put the document in my book and read them. So this is how you'll find copious quotations, very many appendices, both in this book and in the other. The other person I would like to thank is my good friend on my left, Mr. Fayaz Ahmad Kalu. He is the editor of Greater Kashmir, of Fearless Daily, and he has never hesitated to print my articles. He was my host when my book, The Kashmir Dispute, also published by Mrs. Indira Chandrasekhar, founder of Tulika Books, published, besides of course Islam, South Asia and Cold War. Now, Fayaz Ahmad Kalu Sahab hosted in Srinagar at the Nagin Club the launch of my book, The Kashmir Dispute. And I'm grateful to him for coming here as guest of honor. I have mentioned very many people there who have assisted me. It remains for me to thank my editor, Mr. Shad Naved Sahab, who is here and who licked the manuscript into shape. And I must thank above all my good friend and the publisher, Mrs. Indira Chandrasekhar, founder of Tulika Books. Inshallah, she'll publish the 3rd volume of my Babri Masjid also. Now, these are the notes of gratitude. There's one person I have not forgotten, and this is Mr. Muhammad Safiullah. Muhammad Safiullah's, all those rich photographs you find are due to the inexhaustible reservoir of Mr. Muhammad Safiullah, who's got these rare photographs. And Safiullah Sahib, from this platform, I request you in all earnestness to please bring out a compilation of them. You can count on my assistance in whatever way you like, but you'll be doing a big service to history. Now, having said all this, let me explain to you my approach. I said that the other word for Allah is Annal Haq. You know, in the month of May 1947, the entire British cabinet was for making peace with Hitler. There was one man and one man alone who stood out and said, no way. And he overruled the majority. and that was Winston Churchill. If ever a man saved a whole nation, self-respect, honor and freedom the world over, it was Winston Churchill. What happened in 45 after he had won the war? The British public threw him out of power. He was shocked and traumatized. But unlike our leaders, he went back in all humility and took the position of leader of opposition. But over the years, volumes have come out about his crimes, use of poison gas in Iraq and much else, including some acts which verge on personal financial corruption. Now, I mentioned Dr. Ambedkar's influence on my mind, but we have a way of corrupting our studies and corrupting our minds by idol worship. Ambedkar, in his last speech, while asking for the adoption of the drafting committee's report, the draft of the Constitution, November 1949, says, there are three things we must guard against. One is no lawlessness, no satyagraha. That was all right against British rule. You've got a democratic constitution, don't do it. Thirdly, political freedom without economic and social freedom is meaningless. But he had on the same bench men like Jawaharlal Nehru and Vallabhbhai Patel. And what did he say? He said, Bhakti in religion may be a path to salvation. In politics, it's the path of degradation. He quoted John Stuart Mill. No man should compromise his independence, honor out of gratitude. No woman should compromise her chastity out of gratitude, and no nation should compromise its independence out of gratitude. He said, never lay your freedom at the feet of a great man. Now we have done this. In India and Pakistan, I find the same thing. Gandhi can do no wrong, we say, and in Pakistan, Jinnah can do no wrong. In fact, they passed a law that he should be called Qaid-e-Azam. Now, I have rebelled against this without being a conscious rebel. Simply by being, I hope, a good student. I do not claim to be a scholar. I have the limitations of a lawyer who does a little research. But I believe that one should seek the truth and not give a tuppence for the greatness of the people. Treat them with respect. In this case, as in much else, let Ghalib be our guide. Lazim nahi ke Khizr ki hum pairvi kare. लाजिम नहीं कि खिज़र की हम पैरवी करें, जाना के एक बुजुर्ग हमें हम सफ़र मिले. So these great leaders were our companions, but we shouldn't bow before them. Let's keep our active. Now this book is the third in a trilogy. In March 2010, I published a book called Jinnah and Tilak. The biographers of Jinnah as well as Tilak consciously, I'm sure, deliberately erase the record of Jinnah's personal friendship. The fathers they meet, they go, is to say, oh, he appeared for him in a law case. No. Kanji Dwarkadas, who was a friend of both and whom I knew very well, we used to meet every week. He said, he has written that Jinnah's chambers in the Bombay High Court were the center of the freedom movement in the second decade of 20th century. Tilak used to be there. And when Tilak died, Jinnah left his chambers, rushed to Crawford Market, to Sardar Greha, and climbed those steep stairs to see him there. And he was not an emotional man. But the speech which Jinnah gave on the condolence meeting for Tilak, people don't remember. Just as they don't want to remember Jinnah's brilliant speech in defense of Bhagat Singh. He said, the man who goes on a hunger strike is a man with a soul. He believes in something and is prepared to die for it. I challenge the Home Minister, let him go on a fast. Now, Stalin, as you know, when he fell out with Trotsky, he wrote history and reduced Trotsky to a non-person. We have done the same with Jinnah. On one point, Indians and Pakistanis are in full agreement, which is that Jinnah was born on 23rd March 1940. So the record before that is forgotten. I believe that Jinnah's record thereafter deserves criticism before also, but the heroic efforts, but they compare him to, because he was well dressed, they compare him to Tej Bahadur Sapru and Jaikar. That's rubbish. Two British governors, Sydenham and Rayburn, recommended his deportation to Burma. So when I went through this, I attacked Jinnah for advocating partition and even more so the poisonous two-nation theory. And I attacked him for the way he treated Indian Muslims after partition. He was absolutely indifferent. What I wish to bring out further is how he harmed Pakistan itself. So this was my approach, and the book was launched to his credit by Oxford University Press, Karachi in Pakistan. That was one. But I believe Kashmir and Hyderabad are part of the same transaction of partition. So in on May 15, 2013, came the book, The Kashmir Dispute, which is out there, hosted by my good friend Fayaz Ahmad Kalu. And I said that this trilogy must end with a sequel, which is the destruction of Hyderabad. The destruction of Hyderabad, and I must thank Mrs. Indra Chandrasekhar for publishing two books by the same author in the same year. It is very kind of her really to push through this project. This book has no heroes except one. Who are the heroes? The heroes are not some great personality as we call them. The heroes are the people of the erstwhile state of Hyderabad with its rich composite secular culture, its graces, and those graces remain, as I've written in the book, culture is what remains when all else is gone. Now let me begin with the Nizam of Hyderabad. In a letter to Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he writes, Hyderabad never had control over external affairs, which is very true. The British cheated the Nizam throughout. They would take land and offer him protection and charge money for the protection. He would go in debt, more lands. They cheated him of Birar, northern Sarkar's ceded areas. There was troops were installed. Anyway, but as a result of this, Mir Osman Ali Khan developed the arts of intrigue into a fine art. It may surprise people, he had less autonomy than other Indian states. In fact, he had a big laugh when Sir Mirza Ismail told him, you are a constitutional monarch, because he could not appoint a prime minister without the governor general's permission, without the viceroy's permission. Two ministers had to be nominated by the British. The resident would control. But knowing he had Jinnah thrown out of his room virtually 46. And what we find in 47 and 48, he gave Jinnah a veto and said, I'll act according to your advice. Jinnah seized on this. And Jinnah's advice was a piece of criminal irresponsibility. He said, if you don't have petrol, fight. If you don't have ammunition, fight. I'm only reminded of Iqbal's lines, Momin hai to beter mein ladta hai sipahi. Why did he do that? So Walter Monckton told Nizam, Jinnah's advice is conceived not in the interest of Hyderabad, but in the interest of Pakistan. He wants Hyderabad to fight with India so that he gains few points in the Indo-Pak Cold War. The book has full text of the record of those minutes when Jinnah spoke to the Hyderabad delegation in August, I think on 4th August 1947, shortly before he left for Pakistan for good. There was, however, one opportunity by which the Cold War would have been aborted. On 1st November 1947, Mountbatten went to Hyderabad, to Lahore, where at Government House he gave written proposals. The text of those proposals are in this book as well as in the Kashmir book. He said, let us have a plebiscite in all the 3 states, Kashmir, Junagadh and Hyderabad. Jinnah said, keep Hyderabad out. I may mention that in March 1947, he had invested nearly 2 lakhs in Hyderabad. He and Nizam never had a high opinion of each other. Walter Monckton said that he had only to mention Nizam's name and his face froze. However, Jinnah, I won't say it was because of the financial, but that financial investment in March reflected 2 assumptions. Hyderabad's viability and that after partition, there will be free movement of men, material and money between India and Pakistan. Both assumptions were unreal and fell to the ground within months after partition. Till the last, he kept on advising. At the same time, the Hyderabad delegation asked, what will you give us? Nizam asked him pointed questions. The Nizam's questionnaire is also in the book. Will you give us the following? No country can give these assurances. And, you know, Jinnah was not a religious person by any means. He said, what about Imam Hussain at Karbala? So, Jesus, Imam Hussain at Karbala fought a historic martyrdom. It was for a moral principle. Yet there was state interest involved. And what kind of a state it was? Let me be frank. There was something unreal about the state of Hyderabad. It is true that in personal manners, the Nizam was circular. But let's face it, Urdu language ruled supreme. Sir William Barton, the resident, gave a memorandum as early as 1925. He said the state has 3 segments, 3 linguistic segments. The ruler is an autocrat. These are the fault lines. And Jinnah said have reforms. But if you had reforms, the majority opinion would naturally want accession to India. And let me tell you something else, that the Union of India presented to the Nizam proposals which no federation in its entire history of federations has ever presented to a unit, including association in the conduct of foreign trade. Those documents are all here. However, here comes the rift within the Union Cabinet, and the rift began as early as 1937. Sardar Patel, Acharya Kripalani, Moraji Desai, Ravi Shankar Shukla and others represented the Pu Mahasabha wing, and the other, Nehru, represented the secular wing. They sabotaged Nehru's move for Muslim mass contact movement. In fact, I've quoted Patel's. Patel was very soft on C.V. Ramaswamy Iyer, though he asked for independence of Travancore Cochin. The Maharaja of Kashmir threatened secession, but Patel was soft. Now, Nehru was an Indian nationalist who didn't want Balkanization of India and very rightly didn't want an independent state built on absolute monarchy within the Union of India. As Professor Reginald Copeland, who was by no means sympathetic to Congress, said, India could exist if its arms were amputated, East Pakistan and West Pakistan. But how could it exist without its heart? There was never any possibility of this. Nehru was the Indian, but to have Patel, it was a Muslim state, just as he had called the Maharaja of the Kashmir a Hindu state. To Patel and the very fact that he appointed a man like K. Munshi, who had resigned from the Congress on this issue, who was an Akhand Hindustani, set up Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, and as an article in Economic Weekly by a scholar shows, he was the RSS Hindu Mahasabha mole within Congress. Patel knew of it. Patel had close links with Golwalkar. In fact, he wanted to bring about Kashmir's accession through Golwalkar. Asif Ali's memoirs show that even during the Quit India movement, even in prison, he treated the Muslim congressmen with suspicion. To Hyderabad, to Nehru, Hyderabad was a state which had no right to exist, have independent existence, but Nehru, like Sarojini Naidu, admired Hyderabadi culture, particularly the Urdu language, the graces. That very culture seemed to K. Munshi, he called it an alien culture, and Patel hated it. So Patel was a quintessential Hindu nationalist. Nehru was the quintessential secular Indian nationalist. At that point, Patel had known, and he took his revenge. You are going to decide Kashmir policy. I am Home Minister and Minister for State. I will decide this policy. As long as Mountbatten was there was a curb. Once Mountbatten left, Patel told K. Munshi, tell the Nizam that the man who gave the proposals has gone away. Look at Patel. In one and the same speech, he attacks Maulana Azad's patriotism. 4th or 6th January 1948, and invites the RSS and Mahasabha to join Congress. This was in January 48. What treatment could the Nizam expect from him? But the ultimate came with the invasion. You don't have a police action with one lieutenant general, 3 majors general, 1 armored division and the Air Force, and call it a police action. Only a dishonest man like Krishna Menon would have given such a title. And unfortunately, it was adopted. The army was sent. There was one saving grace. Major General Chaudhary was secular. He was doing the duty, but he did his best. After that, Patel saw to it that the entire bureaucracy was uprooted. Here, Ali Awal Jat played a dirty role. He was Vice Chancellor of Osmania University, and he thought that he would please them by abruptly demoting Urdu. Now, in my opinion, Urdu was given primacy in a very unreal way because the majority of people didn't embrace Urdu. But it should have been gradually done. He did it all of a sudden. And there was a shock. Panditji would write letters after letters to Patel. They are quoted here. bureaucracy came from Madras, from Bombay and everywhere. Hyderabadis were walking aimlessly in the streets of Bombay, unsure whether to take the ship to Karachi, plane to Karachi, or do this. Then there was a massacre of Muslims in Hyderabad. At Maulana Azad's request, and with the full knowledge of Patel, a committee was set up consisting of Pandit Sundarlal, Khaja Abdul Ghaffar and several others. Pandit Sundarlal was a great man. I am the proud owner of a first-rate book by him entitled The Gita and the Quran. He came, the report was suppressed. This book has the full text of that report along with the confidential rights. What did Sardar Patel do? He disowned it. Now, the report records General Chaudhry's full cooperation and also records that the army as an institution was not to blame. Ali Awar, being the dishonest careerist that he was, in his articles, he whitewashed it. The BBC and those others are wrong in saying that a report is not available. Report is available. I've quoted at length in an article frontline. Here I have reproduced the full text. Anybody, I got it from Pandit Sundarlal Institute and Nehru Memorial thing. It makes shattering reading because it is very. Along with that, you must read the photographs. My good friend Muhammad Safiullah Sahib was kind to give me, and those books have enriched and embellished the book. Here you find Qasim Razi having a women's brigade and little toddlers brigade. And what was Qasim Razi when he served a sentence? He was given a trial, though the Supreme Court judgment was attacked by Sirwai. The Supreme Court judgment was bad. But in Pakistan, he became a tout. And I have quoted from Field Marshal Ayub Khan's diary that he was leading a dishonorable existence. And there were others. The collector of Osmanabad, Hyderabad, that he was just a third-rate lawyer from Natu. He was a bad record. And for all his faults, Bahadur Yar Jang was a civilized man. He earned the respect of Tagore and Sarojini Naidu. Himself praised them. And had he lived, he would have grown. This Razakar, this man, it was not the Majlis-e-Ittihadul Muslimin. Majlis-e-Ittihadul Muslimin was a disciplined body founded by Bahadur Yar Jang. This was a momentary aberration and it died with Qasim Razvi, not before he had inflicted. But here the Nizam played a double role. He would scold him and then send him food from his table. Anyway, that was the tragedy. Eventually, Hyderabad would have exceeded. The moral, what is the moral? The moral is never let loose an army on your own people. Had the government of India waited, the economic blockade was beginning to tell. There were people like Farid Mirza and others who were pressing for accession, and the Nizam would have caved in. I have given in the book a direct parallel. That is Operation Blue Star. Bindran Wale, the Qasim Rizvi of the Akali Dal, was holed up. How long could he have lasted without electricity, without water, and with the siege? They said that we were afraid. But if Mrs. Gandhi had been statesmanlike enough to give the Akali Dal the terms which Rajiv Gandhi did after her death in 1985, she would have isolated him. Operation Blue Star was conceived before the negotiations began. And I've got the thing in I've quoted the thing in my article on a white paper on black deeds published by Narasimha Rao, whose role, by the way, in Hyderabad was despicable. At that time, Rajiv Gandhi said, wait for Indira Ji. She will solve it the way she solved Bangladesh. So military preparations were there, and you know, to this day, the Sikhs have not forgiven. To this day, we are demanding apologies, and there were a massacre of Sikhs in Delhi. Never let loose an army on the people. And I would extend it to Kashmir. The army was there to check Pakistani infiltrators. That is all but finished. For God's sake, withdraw but they are in occupation of tourist spots, whole canals, in university and others, whatever for. In Northeast, it's the same problem. The army very sensibly says, don't use us in Chhattisgarh. It's a socio-economic problem. Use political methods and a minimum for everything. But this is what they did. There is one thing which I must tell you. The one person I miss in this hall now is my late friend Umar Khalidi, the devoted chronicler of Hyderabad. And he has made a very fine point in his thing. He said the Muslims of Hyderabad were lucky to get as their neighbors the tolerant Telugu people. The people of the Telugu speaking people, very tolerant one, and with all the teething trouble, an adjustment took place. Here now I see a vibrant Hyderabadi culture with a different ambience, and culture must be based on sundry influences. There is now, the history is something we learn from, and my book is written in that spirit, not in a spirit of denunciation, but it ends in a note of hope, and I believe that the people of the erstwhile state of Hyderabad and the people of Andhra Pradesh will prosper, and I wish them all the best. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.